We're talking to the legendary Jim Young of Muleshoe. Jim, how long have you lived in Muleshoe?
I was born in Muleshoe.
How long is that?
Well, I was born in 1944, so I've lived here all my life.
And so you're getting to be a senior citizen.
No, not yet. No.
What's your earliest memory of Muleshoe, Jim Young?
Earliest memory of Muleshoe? Well, probably we lived out in the country quite a ways, and
At Needmore area.
Yeah, Needmore area, and it was always a treat because we stayed in the country all the time. You didn't go to town every day. You go to town on Saturdays, and it was always a treat to come to Muleshoe on Saturday, and that was kind of I always go to Muleshoe, and that's kind of the first.
And so when you got to town on these Saturdays back in, say, the 40s and 50s, well, what did you do in Muleshoe on a Saturday?
My mother always stayed over at Harvey Bass, the needle shop, and
Harvey Bass Supply.
Yeah, and then everybody always ended up at Dameron Drug.
And what'd you get at Dameron Drug?
Well, we just
just hung out,
stuff like that.
They had a fountain.
Yeah, but at Dameron Drug, that's where if anybody at that time when I was young needed to use the telephone, they would drive to Muleshoe and use the telephone in Dameron Drug.
But you didn't have phones out at Needmore or in the country around Muleshoe.
Not at that time.
It's probably a little late 50s.
Probably.
You got a telephone.
Right.
When you did, how many people were on a line?
Oh, there was Nudie Moore. And Wilson.
That's Will Cecil.
Yeah. Wilson Witherspoon, A.J. Schaefer, Gordon Tiller. There was probably 7 or 8 of us on a party line.
And when they picked it up, they could hear what you were saying.
Oh yeah, and our prefix was Whitehall. Whitehall. And if you figure that out, 946. If you look, that's Whitehall. And our number was Whitehall 946-2127, I think, something like that.
I see. Well, now, Jim, did you ever go to the show on Saturday?
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Do you remember the name of the theater?
Wallace, maybe, and there was another one there. Palace, and the thing I remember about that, 9 cents you could get in the show.
9 cents. Yeah. Any movies you remember?
Well, they had all those Hopalong Cassidys and Roy Rogers and stuff like that.
And wasn't there a serial too? Like a cliffhanger. It would go from one Saturday to the next Saturday. It wasn't the movie.
I don't really remember that specifically.
It was, Jim.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, you would know. You're older than I am, so you would know.
Oh, anything to put me down, Jim. Well, how did you meet the lovely Terry Young?
Oh well, she just fell crazy, head over heels over me. I mean, I just couldn't run her off, and she just kept hanging around.
And she still has for how many years?
Yeah, don't ask that question. I met her at West Texas State, and
what were you doing up there?
I was going to school, played football at West Texas, and
who was the coach?
Joe Kerbel.
Always.
During my time, yes.
And boy, they produced some really wonderful football players at WT in that era.
Oh yeah, some great ones.
And boy, couldn't Coach Kerbel scream?
Yeah, he had a good vocabulary and loud too.
Oh, wasn't he though? Yeah. Who were some of the football players you played with at WT?
Well, besides the Funk brothers from Amarillo or Canyon, Mercury Morris, Dwayne Thomas, Pete Pedro, Bob Petridge. There was a lot of those guys that names may not be as.
But some of them went on into the pro.
Well, Bob Petridge played 7 or 8 years in the pros, and there was a lot of those guys like that. And they had Mercury. Yeah, he was on the undefeated team for the Miami Dolphins.
But I'm sure you started playing football here in Muleshoe.
Oh, did? Yeah, Bill Taylor was basically our head coach.
Now, were you on one of those teams that actually was one of the best ever in Muleshoe back in the 60s?
No.
You weren't.
Mm-mm.
You had already
our records. Our records when I was there probably was about 5 and 5.
But didn't you play in Buffalo Bowl a by-district game?
No.
You did not. So it was the year after you.
Well, it could have been. I don't remember that. I don't remember.
Well, what year did you graduate?
62.
Okay, and the year that President Kennedy was assassinated, we played the day he was.
I was at that game. I came down from Lubbock, and he was assassinated, and we played Denver City,
we won.
And we won, and I was at that game.
Okay.
But I was not on.
No. Well, who were some of your high school friends?
Well, Jerry Howard and Jim Bryant. Dixon Ray, the Gilbert boys.
A lot of those are deceased.
Yeah, some of them are.
Jerry
and, the girls were like
Don Gardner.
Don Gardner, yeah. The girls were like Maria Reed and Sylvia Poole, Rhonda Johnson Linnell was in our class.
Booth.
Linnell Booth, yes. Yeah, she was in our class.
And so what was Muleshoe High School like back in the 60s?
I would say that we probably had a little better unit than they do now, in the fact that we actually started the school together from the first grade and then graduated together, and you know,
most of those people you mentioned actually started with you.
Sure, they did, and you know, we stayed together the whole time.
And they didn't have kindergarten in those years.
Well, I think they did, but I didn't go because
it was private.
Well, I was out in the country so far that you just didn't go back and forth.
Your parents were who?
Johnny and W.R. Young.
And they both died when you were young.
When I was 14 and 16.
And so you had siblings.
Yeah, John Young and Sue Young.
And Sue lives where?
Lubbock.
In Lubbock. And what's her married name?
Rogers.
And how many children do you have?
I have two boys.
And who are they?
Greg Young and Chris Young.
And where are they?
Chris is in San Antonio and Greg lives in Muleshoe.
And so you still have the family farm, right?
I do.
And what do you grow out there?
Well, we grow cotton and milo and stuff, just wheat.
What is stuff? I've always
it's just general.
It's weeds.
We try not to do that.
Now, when you were growing up and during these 50 years of your memory, who are some of the characters of this community that you remember?
Mike Barron. he was one character that I remember real well.
I remember one fight y'all had. One of you were on crutches.
Yeah.
And it was in the cafeteria.
Right.
Do you remember that?
I do.
And your parents were dating at that time. Do you remember
My
that?
parents were dating
her.
I know. Yes,
Dorothy Barron.
You're right.
I don't know what it was over, but
yeah.
And you don't remember either.
Well, another character was Gary King.
Yes.
And but there was a bunch of characters there.
And of course, Gary is the brother of Bobby Nell Dunham and Billie Jean Graves, and also now something else. Adults, talk about Randy Johnson.
Yeah, well, I've just grew up knowing Randy, and basically from being in that class with those kids, and plus Johnson Pool. And
that was a appliance store.
Right. And Myron was in there. Pool was in there with him, and it's just I stayed in Muleshoe or came back to Muleshoe, and Randy had lived here all his life, and a lot of those other guys. So it's another real character in Muleshoe, a real character that everybody liked was Martin Oliver, and because. We grew up. I grew up in that area with like Martin and Woody and Harold.
Woody Lambert
and Harold King, and they were characters, And Martin had everybody a nickname. Everybody was nicknamed, and those were real characters.
Do you remember one or two of the nicknames?
Well, Harold King was bucket mouth.
What teachers do you remember during your 12 years in the Muleshoe school?
Well, my first grade teacher was Miss Witherspoon, and she lived
down there.
She sure did. And
Lois Witherspoon.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, I guess I remember Miss Thompson teaching, I believe it was history or something.
In junior high.
In junior high. And, Elizabeth Watson. She was one of my favorites. And, she's the one that, if you look in the annual, where she was holding my hand. I don't know if you remember, down the hall because I was getting in trouble.
Jim?
And she took that picture and they put it in the annual. And
did you ever get a whipping in school?
Well, I was one of the fortunate ones that did not get a whipping from Wayne Mantooth.
He was a coach.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate that I missed out on that. But Bill Parker paddled me.
He was the principal.
He was the principal. Yeah.
And did it really hurt?
Well, yeah, he could swing a pretty good board, but not like Mantooth.
Yeah, because Bill Parker was a small stature man.
Bill Taylor could paddle you pretty good too. Yeah. But I dodged most of those, with the exception of Bill Parker.
Do you remember how would Bill Taylor discipline you besides paddling if he knew about something that you had done wrong?
I don't know that I can answer that. I don't think that if he paddled me, he might have paddled me once or twice, but I don't know that it ever got to the point to where that I got in that much trouble with Coach Taylor.
What Coach Taylor told me, he said, I always let the parents take care of that because that was the worst thing. And especially, in those days, smoking was a no-no, for his athletes.
Well, sure. Oh, yeah, yeah.
And do you remember parents of the kids that you grew up with, maybe some of the parents that influenced you?
Oh, yeah. Well, because we ran around together, I knew Buddy Howard real well, and it was supposed to be Jerry Howard, and his sister was named Sandra.
Sandra Myers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And it's though you talk about parents, it's like mainly those kids that I went to school with all my life in the same grades was the ones that we talked about, like Jerry
and Billy Gilbreth.
Oh, yeah.
Their parents were just some of the nice.
Oh, they're great.
Francis Gilbreth and Hazel Gilbreth.
Yeah, they're still, those boys are good people.
Aren't they, though?
Real good, real good. Real good.
Yeah. And you're real good, too.
Oh, you bet. You bet. Yeah. You bet.
And so today, what's your life like?
Well, I would say I'm healthy. Bruce Purdy's my doctor, and I usually let him do all my physical work, and had all my blood work done and everything. And day before yesterday, I told me I didn't have a thing wrong with me. I was just healthy, healthy to be, and all of my counts and everything is great. And he just told me that if I didn't take a few chances, I might live forever.
Oh, my goodness. And are you glad that you've lived forever right here in Muleshoe?
You probably, anybody looks back and thinks, what if? What if? But, I've liked it here, had a lot of friends here, there's nothing I can do about it anymore, but, I haven't regretted it.
And Muleshoe's been good to you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And Terry, your wife, taught at school?
She did. She's a speech therapist. That's right.
She helped you a lot, didn't she?
Oh, no, she was lucky she found me. That's...
Okay, we've been talking to Jim Young of Muleshoe fame. It's the legendary Jim Young. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you.